Greetings! It is I, Countess Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. It is time to continue my discussion on Werewolf the Apocalypse in the World of Darkness. Apologies, last video that we're going to have was some dim lighting today, but again, soothing sound of my voice you can enjoy for this video at very least. So, let's dive into the fact that we were talking about spirits. We talked about the spirits' attributes last time. Let's talk about something important related to spirits today. Fetishes and Talens. So fetish. A fetish is a special object of which a spirit is bound into it, and the user of said object can call upon the spirits for a special task, the task being particular to the type of spirit, which of course is bound within the fetish itself. So whatever type of spirit here kind of gives the idea of what kind of task that I'm going to be using this fetish for. Fetishes are often made of natural materials, bone, wood, and the like, though sometimes you can get some more unnatural materials. Things like glass walkers have been known to create some unusual fetishes. They're then oftentimes handheld. That's an important thing. Most of them are held in your hand and adorned with things like feathers or carvings of the actual spirits, which are encased within them. Some fetishes are weapons, but their fetishes are as boundless and multitude of them as there are numbers of spirits and the powers that they could provide. Regardless, though, of the type of spirit, the powers it has, and what you do with this fetish, all fetishes are actually held in incredibly high regard by Garou. They are sacred objects because they represent the connection and bindings with spirits. They are treated with respect and held in high regards always. The worm, its creatures, its other servants, are always seeking to find fetishes to destroy them in order to attack the spirits within because they are bound to the Garou, or they also look to create their own twisted versions of fetishes that they could use against Garou. A spirit that is bound in a fetish is bound that way through a rite of binding, and this is always willing. Garou always bind a willing spirit. Now, this doesn't mean that they couldn't bind an unwilling spirit. The possibility does exist. But the fetishes that are created through the binding of an unwilling spirit are considered cursed. To bond with a fetish, once you have one, you must use gnosis in order to do this. You're connecting with the fetish itself. Then you gain an empathic connection to this fetish and the spirit within, so if the fetish takes damage, you understand it. But you also gain a knowledge of what this fetish can do, and a little bit of what the spirit within could have done. You gain a little bit of knowledge of what is in this place empathically. You're connected to it, so not only you know, I can do this with this fetish, I know it's this spirit is within it, and this spirit could do these things. Now, the difficulty of this role is the gnosis of this spirit within it. It's based upon the gnosis of the spirit within it. So the more powerful the spirit that is being bound, the more gnosis it has, the more difficult it is for you to connect with it. But you only need a single success to connect to the fetish. If you fail, you can never bind with this fetish. You can never connect with it. Never again can you even attempt a gnosis roll. It is out of your reach of connecting with this spirit. But should you get that at least single success, you are bound to it, and you recognize it. The actual nature of the spirit within the fetish will completely be up to your storyteller, and will sort of build off of that for what you know when you're connecting to this and understanding the spirit more. Look to your storyteller. To use a power of a fetish, you must either use a gnosis roll to activate it, or if you wish to, you can spend a point of gnosis to activate it automatically to your use. It's important to note that when a fetish is created, the type of spirit makes a difference. If I'm attempting to create a fetish that is a weapon that has combat abilities, I'm not going to bind a healing spirit to there. It's not going to work. I will bind a spirit that has combat abilities. Similarly, if I'm making a fetish that can heal, of course I don't want a combat spirit to be bound to this. I want a healing spirit, one that has healing powers, so the fetish itself has healing powers. It's also important to note that the majority of fetishes are created with gafflings. Most of them, the spirits bound, just that, gafflings. Now, very similar to a fetish is a Talen. A Talen is different from a fetish as it has a single use before it is used up. But similar to a fetish, it is binding a spirit to an object using a rite of binding and keeping it there. It's just that as soon as I use this Talen, the spirit is freed. So it still contains the spirit's essence, and I still require Gnosis to kind of connect and activate it. The big difference here, I use my Talen, the spirit exits, it is going away. Another big difference, a Talen can be used by anyone, even non-Garu. It does not require that you be a Garu, it only requires that Gnosis connection in order for you to activate it. Which very oftentimes there are very few non-Garu that simulate Gnosis, or at least have something similar to it that would activate this. But it does exist. The thing about this is that the rite of binding is still used to bind a spirit to it, but it's not a problem to forcefully bind a spirit in a Talen. The reason behind this is that Talens are temporary, unlike fetishes. If I bind a spirit to a fetish, it is in there into the fetish until I let it out of the fetish. Basically, remove the spirit from the fetish, dispel the fetish, get rid of it. I make that choice. Until then, it is bound there. For the Talen, as soon as it's used, spirit is gone. So yes, it's not seen as something insulting to temporarily bind a spirit unwillingly to a Talen. In fact, Garu oftentimes do it because of such things. Because it's the idea it's only temporary. Oftentimes it's considered quite honorable to battle a spirit in combat in order to know the rite of binding and bind it into your Talen. To basically battle it out for the control of temporarily binding it to you. To use this Talen for a great task. You can see the storyline going on there with that. Now when it comes to binding it, the Talen's Gnosis rating is equal to the spirit's Gnosis rating. And you're going to want to make a number of... you're going to make a check, basically, when you're binding it. For every success you have beyond the first one, you can create extra Talens that you can use in the course of this. So, though I might be binding the same spirit, I could divide that essence of the spirit and bind it to multiple Talens. Basically, that one spirit could create a few different ones. Each one is still a single use, but I can get a couple of uses out of it before it's finally freed, kind of thing. I have a bunch of Talens, whether it takes on the form of just something, again, for powers. I could have a healing Talen that I've got like 3 of, or a combat Talen that I could use 4 times, depending on how many successes I get. Similarly, again, you would traditionally look to Gafflings, but you could bind a more powerful spirit, especially because you are combating them in order to bind them. The more powerful the spirit, the more Talens you actually create. Certain spirits, when you bind them, might have 2, 3, 4 extra Talens that they would automatically create beyond the one you normally would get for successfully binding it when you're creating them. You get bonuses because it's so powerful, because its energy could spread out between all of these when you're using it for those couple of times. Now, the book does provide a list of some samples of fetishes that you might want to look into, which you can use either to actually have that as your fetish, or as an example to build your own with the help of your storytell. And similarly, it has a list of Talens, because Talens are a little bit more one use. They have their own unique sort of versions of them that, again, you could look to this list as both examples, or you could just copy them exactly. Your choice, and again, especially if you are designing your own, look to your storyteller to figure out how exactly the fetish or Talen you have / using will actually work. The two of you are going to work together for that, for character creation side, and especially if you're creating it during the course of the game, that'll definitely be a little bit on the storyteller side for exactly the work. But that's it for today. So, I introduced you to fetishes and Talens. Fetishes, which are objects with bound spirits, giving you powers. Talens, which are the same thing, but single use, or single use per Talen you have. In the next episode, we're going to dive into the game systems. Basically what we're doing, we're playing the game now. We've talked about all the spirits you can encounter. We talked about creating your character. It's time to play Werewolf, and we're going to talk about all the systems you're going to have to know about in order to play it. We're just going to go over the important basics you're going to have to know about. Leave some of the details to you to read through if you really, really want to dive into the depths of them, and if you need to. Regardless, though, I hope you're having a great day. If you actually have any kind of cool fetishes or Talens that you've designed, either as a player with a storyteller help or as a storyteller, let me know in the comments below. I love to hear your stories about interesting items bound with bound spirits that you've had and used in the course of any of your games. And until the next time, I bid you farewell.